Hey there, 8th graders, and welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving headfirst into the War of 1812 today, and honestly, I am so pumped to unpack this with you. We aren't just going to sit here and look at some dusty timeline of battles because really, who in the world would expect a nation to find massive success right after having its own capital city literally burned to the ground by the enemy? It sounds crazy, right? But as you'll see, sometimes the absolute biggest wins in history don't look anything like you'd expect them to.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. We're going to kick things off with a war with no prize, then we'll check out the manufacturing boom and see how that sparked the era of good feelings. After that, we'll dive into economic and political independence, before wrapping the whole shebang up with education, morality, and peace. Let's get to it.
All right, Section 1, a war with no prize. So we are setting up a major historical irony here. Let me ask you something. What do you actually get from a war when you win zero land? Seriously, think about that for a second. Usually when we study conflicts, right, the winner gets a bunch of new territory, borders are drawn, and the maps are completely rewritten. But at the very end of the War of 1812, the United States didn't gain a single inch of new land. Not one. But they didn't lose any either. The border stayed exactly the same as before. So did they just completely waste their time? Well, the answer is a resounding no. They actually gained two massive things: confidence and growth. You see, the true prize for the United States was this huge, unseen boost in national self-reliance. Surviving a brutal war against a global superpower like Great Britain for the second time, mind you, without losing their country, that proved to the world, and honestly more importantly to themselves, that the United States was absolutely here to stay. Moving right along to Section 2, the manufacturing boom. Okay, so we know they got a major confidence boost, but how exactly did this war trigger an absolute explosion of American growth? Well, here is the rapid cause and effect chain that pretty much changed America forever. Step 1. During the war, British ports slammed shut to American ships. They set up these massive blockades, which leads to Step 2. Trade essentially just stops. The U.S. could no longer import the everyday goods they desperately needed from Europe. I mean, this was an absolute crisis. But then we hit Step 3. Americans were basically forced to make goods at home. If they couldn't buy it, they had to build it themselves. And that leads us directly to Step 4. Industrial growth just booms, especially up in the north, where brand new factories started popping up literally everywhere. Think of it kind of like this. Relying on European imports makes you vulnerable, but domestic manufacturing makes you totally self-reliant. Imagine you're relying on someone else to pack your lunch for you every single day. If that person gets mad at you and refuses to pack it, well, you starve. You are incredibly vulnerable. But if you learn how to pack your own lunch, or, in this case, if you build your own factories and make your own goods, you are entirely self-reliant. Building our own factories was a total game changer for the young United States. Which brings us to Section 3, the era of good feelings. So this sudden economic shift was so powerful that it actually spilled over into everyday life, completely transforming American culture and politics. The crucial concept bridging all of this together is nationalism. Now, nationalism is the pride and loyalty to one's country, often shown in unity and a shared purpose. Because the U.S. just survived this crazy war and was now building its own goods, everyday citizens were filled with this fierce shared pride. They weren't just thinking of themselves as Virginians or New Yorkers anymore, they were proudly Americans. And this new pride ushered in what leaders back then literally called the era of good feelings, which was this amazing period of massive political unity and national pride right after the war. This fresh wave of nationalism vibrantly showed up everywhere. You saw it in American art, with painters capturing beautiful local landscapes. You saw it in literature, telling uniquely American stories, and you definitely saw it in politics, where people were actually working together for once. They felt they had finally truly proven themselves on the world stage. All right, on to Section 4, economic and political independence. Now, we really need to connect the dots here between making our own physical goods in those new northern factories and securing our actual freedom as a nation. Consider this thought. If the U.S. could make its own goods, it would be less dependent on European powers. Economic self-reliance had suddenly become the ultimate national goal. It wasn't just about making money anymore. It was about survival. It was about true sovereignty. It all boils down to one fundamental truth. Economic independence equals political independence. When you control your own resources, when you manufacture your own goods, and when you manage your own trade, well, no other nation has the power to control your political destiny. They can't just threaten to cut off your supplies to force you to vote a certain way or sign some treaty. By becoming economically independent, the United States was finally, for sure, politically independent.
Let's shift gears a bit for Section 5, Education, Morality, and Peace.
We've spent all this time talking about building a strong, independent nation, right? Well, let's take a quick second to talk about building a strong, independent you, drawing on the Hero Smart Academy Godly Learners philosophy. Colossians 3:23 tells us, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord." Think about those early Americans, working tirelessly to build brand new factories and a new nation, essentially from scratch. We can totally anchor that historical concept of working hard to the eternal concept of working with all your heart for God. Because right now, your education is your work.
Actually, scratch that. It's more like an equation for our lives. Education plus biblical morality equals true success. Now, you might be wondering, why do we intertwine biblical morality with education here? Well, because honestly, education without a moral compass is just going to lead to hurtful choices. Think about it. What is the point of being super smart and highly educated if you just continually use that knowledge to make bad choices that hurt yourself or the people around you? True education absolutely must be intertwined with morality to be truly successful.
And you know what the reward for all that is? Romans 8:6-7 promises peace of mind to everyone who keeps his or her mind spiritual. That is the true reward right there. As you engage with your learning, as you study history and science and math, keeping your mind spiritually grounded brings a profound peace of mind. It's just an incredible promise to hold on to.
All right, let's wrap this up. Lesson recap and homework.
So let's just quickly run through what we've mastered today for your upcoming assignment. You're going to need to define nationalism in your own words, explain exactly why U.S. manufacturing grew during the war, and define the era of good feelings. Finally, think about how making domestic goods actually helps a country and be ready to give one solid example of American pride after the war. And hey, don't stress. We have covered every single one of these points today in our explainer. You have all the knowledge you need to absolutely crush these questions. Just like early America had to build its own factories to find true independence, you are building your mind right now, every single day, through your education. But here's the ultimate question to leave you with. You have the tools to build your mind, but what moral compass will you use to guide it? Let that sit with you for a bit. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, 8th graders. Keep working with all your heart, and I will see you next time.